Welcome to Common Sense. I'm Sheila Murray, chair of the Berkshire Brigade, which is the Berkshire County's Democratic organization. And today we have Stephen Grossman with us. He's the treasurer of the state of Massachusetts as our special guest. And Steve brings to the office of treasurer and actual receiver general of the state a family heritage of public service and a lifetime of dedicated to helping others and years of experience as a hardworking businessman with a sense of responsibility. He's committed to the full potential of the treasurer's office in protecting the public's money, which we all appreciate, and help to create jobs, boost small businesses, and bring standards of transparency to the disclosure to state government. Steve has been, throughout his 35-year career, he's had an unshakable commitment to recruiting, hiring, and retaining the most qualified candidates possible. And so I'd like to spend some time talking to Steve today and tell us first, where do you stand with your future plans? We hear a lot of rumors out here.
Well, I'm leaning strongly toward running for governor in 2014.
That's great.
Of course, the best thing that you do is to make sure that the office that you were elected to, and it's, I need to express a great deal of appreciation to the people of Berkshire County and people of Western Massachusetts because they supported me strongly in 2010 and helped me get elected state treasurer. So I'm traveling all over the state, building grassroots networks and building new relationships, doing a lot of listening. But I'm leaning strongly toward running for governor. Of course, with a Senate race going on, and we want to make sure that our dear friend Ed Markey, who's my close friend since 1970.
You've known him for a long time.
He and I were in the Army Reserves together in 1970. And I'll never forget something Ed Markey said to me all the way back in 1970, in the middle of the Vietnam War. He said, "Steve, what I believe is in the power of grassroots organizing to change the face of communities." And of course, that's what brings us together today, because that's what the Berkshire Brigades are all about, and that's what I've been all about all my life.
Yeah, that's great, because that's the whole thing with the campaign today. And I think we talked about this a little earlier too, and that the residents of Massachusetts often feel forgotten. We're out here, and Boston's way down the other end of the turnpike. And Beacon Hill, do they know what's going on? And because of the technology today, we're looking at beyond broadband expansion and how can we incorporate this region into the state's transportation and economic plans.
Well, the fundamental principle, at least that I believe in, is that you work to leave no part of the state behind and no citizen behind, because we have no talent to waste. The state's number one asset is our human capital.
Right. Our
young people, those who aren't working but who could work, and those who are looking for a career and an opportunity to realize their full potential. So leaving no one behind is the bottom line principle that I believe is critical. And one of the things that I did as soon as I became state treasurer was we moved hundreds of millions of dollars of taxpayers' money, your money and my money, from banks in Europe, Australia, and Asia back to local community banks. I mean, there's a fundamental principle here. Massachusetts taxpayers' money should be deposited in Massachusetts banks to be loaned to credit-worthy small businesses right here in Massachusetts to create jobs. And there are 7 banks in the 4 western counties, including some right here in the Berkshires, Berkshire Bank, Hoosick Bank up in North Adams, just to mention 2, but 7 banks that have made over 400 loans and have received or made $42 million of loans because of money we've deposited in those banks. And there's a fundamental principle here. We will deposit up to $10 million in any community bank that will agree to loan the money to small businesses in gateway communities. The gateway communities like Pittsfield are communities that have lower levels of economic and educational attainment, have populations between 35,000 and 250,000. Pittsfield, Chicopee, Holyoke, Springfield, communities at Westfield, those are the 5 in Western Mass. And we focus on women-owned and minority-owned businesses and also veteran-owned businesses because, let's face it, women-owned and minority-owned businesses have always had a harder time getting access to capital. So our goal is to level the playing field and make sure that money is available to small businesses to create jobs right here. So that's one thing we've done, and it's spread out all over the state. So Berkshire County Franklin County, Hampshire County, Hampden County, all the 4 western counties have received tons of money deposited in those institutions. The second thing we need to do is to make sure that we link the whole state together in terms of transportation. You've got to link all parts of the state together and find ways that regional transit authorities and other vehicles, just common sense things like bringing commuter rail service from Worcester all the way to Springfield and then using that as a hub to make sure that those who live in the western counties are integrated and fully involved in the economic future of the state. And finally, I chair the Mass School Building Authority. We build and renovate public schools, and we have poured over $500 million into Western Massachusetts over the past few years. We're going to build a new school here in Pittsfield, the Taconic, a vocational technical school.
Which is very
we
much
just
needed.
did a groundbreaking in a new school in Greenfield. But if you go from Greenfield, new school in East Hampton, new school in Long Meadow, new science labs in Springfield, the tornado that destroyed 2 schools, we're going to rebuild those schools in Springfield. So if you look in every part of Western Massachusetts, we're going to try to bring those schools up to make them the finest schools they can be. Because if you put great teachers in great schools with great technology, and make every public school in Massachusetts digital learning ready by 2016, which is one of my priorities, then we can fully integrate the western part of this Commonwealth into the economic well-being and the economic growth that this Commonwealth can be all about, with manufacturing, precision manufacturing, resurgent, because manufacturing is in the bones of Western Massachusetts. It's what we've done for years, it's what we've done for generations, and we can rebuild that in our vocational technical schools and in our community colleges.
Right. And you've actually been pretty instrumental in bringing that money and stuff back into the area, into the state, to create those types of jobs and actually that type of training.
Well, it's just, again, this is just a very simple. I like to keep things pretty simple. You can overcomplicate things in life. This is a pretty simple idea. All that money that was sitting in Europe, Australia, and Asia, we brought home. Not all of it, but a lot of it. And we put that money into local banks. And then you let the genius of the small business sector of our economy take over. Because there are thousands of small business owners all over Western Mass who are looking to grow their businesses. They're looking to finance their receivables, finance growth, a new product line, and hire people. I mean, there's a company in Pittsfield called Starbase Technologies. They got a $500,000 loan from Hoosick Bank up in North Adams, and as a result, the owner of that company, they make precision molding, very high quality molding. It's advanced manufacturing, exactly the kind of manufacturing we want Massachusetts to be known for in the 21st century environment. And as a result of that $500,000 loan, the owner of the company created 17 new jobs and hired 17 people. If you duplicate that again and again and again and again, all over this Commonwealth, all over Western Massachusetts, you can create a vibrant, resurgent economy based on manufacturing, based on science, based on technology, based on innovation, based on imagination. And the fact that the governor just came out to UMass and Amherst and announced a $100 million grant in the life sciences area, that's a game changer for UMass, Amherst, and it's a game changer for all of Western Mass. So let's make sure that we spread prosperity widely and leave no one behind. That's to be the fundamental principle that all of us care about. At least that's what I as a Democrat believe. Make sure that you make it available widely and don't leave anybody out or anybody behind. That to me is critical.
Inclusive philosophy. Now, the average college student today is graduating with more than $35,000 worth of debt. How can we alleviate that burden for them and as young professionals as they enter the workforce? I mean, that's a tremendous amount of money.
It is. And the first thing we need to do is to make sure that we start increasing funding for our public colleges and universities. I mean, funding for public colleges and universities in Massachusetts back in the 70s was 70%. We've dropped to the point where our public colleges and universities get roughly 43% of their money from the state. So tuitions and fees have grown dramatically to make up the difference. So if we truly believe that the workforce of the 21st century in Massachusetts is going to be educated right here, and if 85% of those who graduate from our 29 public colleges and universities, of which there are 7 public colleges and universities right here in the western part of the Commonwealth. From community colleges to the 4-year schools like MCLA up in North Adams to UMass itself. If you truly believe that those people who graduate from those colleges and universities are the backbone of our economy, then we've got to provide a higher level of funding. We've got to freeze tuitions and fees, which the president of UMass has said he will do if the legislature brings that funding back to 50%. Wow. And then you've got to find more scholarship money. The governor is absolutely right. When the governor said we need to invest in education, transportation, and infrastructure, he's absolutely right. He says not only do we have to clear the waiting list for pre-K, but we've got to put more money in higher education and in scholarship assistance. Right. And then I have this idea that we can recruit the next generation of teachers in this Commonwealth based on providing some additional stipends so that if they graduate and say, I will give 5 years to this Commonwealth in the teaching profession, in our gateway communities in particular, we can then say, we'll give you an extra $12,000 a year. That's roughly the tuition and fees at UMass. $12,000 a year for 5 years. You give us 5 years of your life, we will make it worth your while. We will help you pay off those college loans. Hopefully some of them will stay in the teaching profession. And for those who go on into industry or into business, they will have given us 5 years of their life. It's essentially almost a Peace Corps type program, but for the teaching profession. And if we can recruit thousands of new teachers energized by the prospect of going into public schools and teaching, and energized by the fact that they can pay off those college loans and go on with their lives, serving the people of the Commonwealth or going into business or whatever they decide to do, that to me is a very good investment in the future of education, which is the backbone of our economy. I mean, we're not number one in the United States for nothing. I mean, we invested wisely in public education, and we're now considered to be number one. But we're never going to be as good as we can be unless we recruit great teachers, build great schools, put great technology in those schools, and then link that all up together. That, to me, is the ticket for success. That's how, look, our human capital is our number one asset. Alaska may have oil in the ground. We have the most important asset is the human capital. The young people and those who are out of work, we need to find ways to do workforce training, to give them the tools and the skills to compete and win in a new kind of economy. Because it's not the old kind of manufacturing that my grandfather used to know. I've been in business for 36 years, and it was an older manufacturing environment. This is a new manufacturing environment, precision manufacturing, lab coat manufacturing, where students learn how to run a computer that in turn runs the manufacturing equipment. And if we can teach those skills in our voc-tech schools and then at our community colleges like Berkshire Community College, like Springfield Technical Community College, like Holyoke Community College in the western counties, if we can provide that training and that education, then we will have the kind of 21st century workforce which will enable young people to stay here in the western part of the state, build a great lives for themselves, earn enough money, own a home, bring up a family, and have the quality of life that we all have dreamed about, which is really what the American dream is all about.
That's what people are looking for,
exactly.
And that's it. And I think, you know, offering that 5-year commitment to teachers, where pay for teachers has never been the greatest, and when they're facing these $35,000 loans, but to give them that forgiveness, so to speak, or the stipend for those 5 years, I think that's going to be, it'll make up the difference, and I think you can
some
get a
people
lot
might
more
say,
people
gee, that's
in
$12,000 a year for 5 years. That's a total of $60,000 of additional compensation. But that would allow them to walk away with no college debt, put a little bit of money in the bank, and hopefully many of those teachers will say, you know, I love teaching. My wife, Barbara, who went to Smith College. In fact, I met Barbara because my mother went back to her 25th reunion at Smith College in 1968, met Barbara, brought her phone number home and said, Steve, this is a terrific young lady, give her a call. I said, Mom, I'm not going to do that. She said, look, she's beautiful, she's brilliant, she's much too good for you, but call her anyhow. That was 45 years ago. So I'll tell you, just a couple of weeks ago, my mother, 91 years old, went back to her 70th reunion at Smith College.
Amazing.
And we thought about that and remembered that. Barbara and I have been married for 44 years. Barbara's been a teacher for 43 years, and she is a great teacher. She loves teaching. And so we've got a lot of work to do, but a lot of wonderful values in the teaching profession. So let's create the next generation of teachers. Let's pay them appropriately. Let's use our limited state funding to help them relieve the burden of that debt and allow them to walk away after 5 years having essentially paid off that debt. And I think a lot of those young people will stay in the teaching profession
Right.
and will be the great teachers of the future.
I think it's going to give them some confidence too to get into the profession, knowing that they're going to be able to pay back that debt, or it's going to be paid for.
Exactly.
That'll make a big, big difference. Wow. Now, getting to some of the scandal in Massachusetts, the EBT scandal, and taxpayers have a good reason to question how their money is being spent and potentially wasted. As treasurer, what steps have you taken, or will you take, to restore their trust in the system?
So I think we start with a fundamental principle, and that is that people who truly need help, food stamps and other kind of assistance, because they've got challenges and they don't have enough income, that we are a commonwealth, we're a just and humane society, and we need to provide that help to those people who truly need it. It's a fundamental principle. But beyond that, I think it's important to protect the taxpayers' money, every dime of it, because all of the money we spend comes from taxpayers.
Right.
In fact, when I was campaigning for state treasurer, I said, I'm going to put the state's checkbook online. And people said, what does that mean? I said, it means that if you go on mass.gov/open checkbook, you can see